Before we start the meeting, I just wanted, for those of you who haven't joined us before, hi, my name's Amy Wotruba, Executive Director of the Forensic Science Commission. Just to let you know a little bit about how we'll handle public participation. This is a hybrid meeting. So if you're here in person and wish to offer public comment, there are witness slips. If you are joining us via WebEx, you can indicate that you would like to offer public comment either in the chat feature or raising your hand is most helpful because I can't always see the chat feature when I'm sharing my screen. Public comment is at the end of the meeting. However, if the commission members are going to vote on any discussion items, if they're going to take action, I will open it up for any comment related to that vote prior to them taking a vote. So with that being said, I am going to turn it over to Director Designee Woolery to start the meeting.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Do you want to start, Amy, with roll call?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm going to start with commission members. So we have Vice Chair Claire Dragovich. Here. Dr. Arunkumar.
Here.
Ms. Baker. Here. Mr. Buford.
Here.
Ms. Drummond. Mr. Hanlon. I see via WebEx. Judge Hill.
Present.
Dr. Hughes.
Present.
Ms. Ryhill.
Yeah, present.
Ms. Tucker.
Present.
And Ms. Ward.
Present.
And then I'm going to go through in person. We have two members of the public. We have Sarah Ware and Timothy Rupel. I think I got that right for the first time. And now I'm going to call out people that I see on the screen who are joining us via WebEx. So I have Amanda Shanbaum, Andrew Stokes, Gina Havlick, Jan Johnson, Lindsay Simpson, Maya Dukmasova, and Jennifer Maples. Is there anyone who I've missed? And if anyone joins, just so you know, after roll call, that will be indicated in the minutes and the recording. All right, so Deputy Director, you have quorum and guests have been identified. Do you want me to just move on to the minutes?
All right. Yes, please.
Okay, so today we have actually two sets of minutes. First, corrected minutes from the March 12th, 2025 meeting. As I was posting the minutes that you approved at the last meeting, I noticed typos that I don't know how I missed the first time around. So I did corrected minutes, and they were important typos. It was an incorrect date, and then also the roll didn't indicate that Ms. Hughes was here. So I apologize for that omission. And so I made those changes, and I would entertain a motion to approve the corrected minutes and have those posted to replace the old minutes on the website, if anyone would make that motion.
I make a motion to approve the corrected revised minutes from the March 12th, 2025 meeting.
I second that motion. Jill Baker.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. The second is the minutes from the last meeting of June 11th, 2025. Those were shared with commission members in their meeting packets. Does anyone have any comments or corrections to those minutes? If there's no discussion, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from June 11th, 2025, the June 11th, 2025 meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the June 11th, 2025 meeting.
Second, Pony Arunkumar.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. And next we'll move on to Executive Director Summary. If you give me a moment, I will share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay, so starting first with general updates, just another friendly reminder for those of you who have not completed your OneNet annual training modules, there are 5 of them. We're getting near the end of the year, so you will start to receive emails from me at increasing frequency, reminding you to complete that. Usually, this is for non-ISP employees. that I track. Usually there's a deadline set in mid-December for completion of those, and ISP does have to track them and report them. So if you, at your convenience, could go into OneNet, if you have issues accessing the modules, just let me know and I will help you out. Second was term expirations. If your term is expiring in 2025 or 2026, you should have received an email from me in the last 2 weeks explaining, giving you the link to apply for reappointment if you wish to continue on with the commission for another term. This is the first time that terms have expired. So we reached out to Captain Thompson and he provided the information. So the sooner you do that, the better, I would say, because their overlap is fine. So if you can, if you do submit, if you could let me know if you're not planning to seek reappointment, if you could also let me know. I'll keep that candid, obviously, and until you want that information shared, I would very much appreciate it. Any questions about those two items? Okay, so for legal legislative update, Senate Bill 1889 was the bill that the commission voted to support last term with the proposed amendments to the DUI cannabis provisions in the vehicle code. That, as you will recall from the last meeting, I reported that it died in committee. However, I'm continuing based on the commission's position that they believe that you believe that this statute should be amended to attempt to hopefully have it reintroduced in the next term. Fall veto session, highly unlikely. So I have reached out. I've spoken with Senator Morrison. I will speak to other people in the hopes that either Senator Morrison or another legislator will consider reintroducing it in the next session. So I will continue to push for that. I don't know if I will be successful, but I will try. Any questions on that bill? Okay, this one we're going to talk about later during a discussion item, but I just wanted to include it that the bill that allowed for the change to the commission statute, providing that the governor shall designate the chair of the commission for a 2-year term starting January 1st, 2026 was signed. So that does go into effect January 1st. So as a discussion item later, we'll talk about how we may have to amend the bylaws and possibly change the procedures that you previously approved of regarding chairperson and vice chairperson. Also, I wanted to just report that a rather large bill making amendments to the Missing Persons Identification Act was signed, I believe, on August 15th. That also goes into effect on January 1st, 2026. It's a pretty extensive bill. If you want to look it up for the summary online, you can, but I did note a few key changes. It's mostly going to be geared toward law enforcement, creating uniformity on what they have to do with respect to missing persons cases, where they have to share information, timeframes for doing that. It does also address submission of DNA samples, either of the missing person or family members. It makes some provisions for that regarding timelines and where they can be tested. And basically, other big changes are that missing persons cases have to remain active until the person is located, either deceased or alive, as opposed to them previously closing them out. I think a big part of this, in addition to some regular requirements, is that hopefully it will bring uniformity and will encourage the sharing of information with the different databases, where then that information can be connected with unidentified human remains or other information, whether it's biometrics or things like that, to make identifications of missing persons, identifications of unidentified human remains, and then also hopefully finding missing persons. Any questions on that? Okay. An update on Coverdell grants. I learned a little bit more about the federal budget process this year. So as you know, because I think I shared it with you, I did, after the last meeting, do a letter explaining the commission's position and full support of Coverdell funding. That was sent to Senators Duckworth and Durbin, and shared, with anyone I could think of. At this stage, my best information from some people I talked to in Washington is that the Coverdell grants are part of the discretionary budget, the president's discretionary budget, which I believe has to be finalized by the end of September. It is up in the air still at this point, whether that and other there's a lot on the table as part of that budget. So I think we should know, I hope, by the end of September, the impact of the different grants. specifically covered what was, I know, important to everyone. So that's the update on that. Education and outreach. So I did attend the symposium on harnessing AI for forensics in DC this summer. It was very, very hot. But it was luckily we were inside most of the time. It was a very intense, packed agenda with a lot of stakeholders. I participated in one panel discussion about high stakes decision-making and court acceptance. And I've reported back key takeaways. It was, again, a very dense conference. I reported back key takeaways to the technology subcommittee since they were looking at AI at the time. If you are interested in viewing any of the different segments of the conference, there's a link. I've shared the link to the archived event on Teams, and then NIST will be issuing a summary report. I'm not quite sure when. I'd guess in the next few months. I will see Dr. Swafford in next month at a conference, so I may be able to get an update from him on that. So that it might be worth waiting for the summary report to guide if you want to look at anything in particular. I will note one key takeaway that I would say was an agreement. Every stakeholder across the board was that there is no way AI will replace forensic scientists in when it comes to testing forensic evidence in criminal cases, because that just doesn't work for the criminal justice system for many reasons. So there's that. And then for what's coming up is next month, Deputy Director Woolery and I are both going to attend the NAFSB conference, their annual meeting at the University of New Haven, which I'm excited. The conference will involve a tour of their facility. Apparently they have a pretty cool lab. And I'm going to participate in 2 panel discussions, one about transparency and one about AI, with another individual who attended the conference in DC. We're going to kind of share key takeaways, and then I think Dr. Swafford is joining us for that one as well. In addition to those panels that I'm participating in, it's again a jam-packed schedule. These are some of the topics. I was happy to see there's some pathology that was not, I don't think, represented last year. The legal standards presentation on Smith versus Arizona is going to involve a lead prosecutor from Arizona, a judge from Arizona, someone from the lab system in Arizona, and I think they're trying to get a defense attorney as well, so that should be especially interesting. And then I'll given some topics that are relevant right now in Illinois. Someone is going to present from Colorado regarding CBI's recent reviews and changes. So it should be a good conference. I'm looking forward to it, and be able to report back in December.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Amy. I think that takes us into our subcommittee reports. Do we want to go with the quality systems report to start off with?
Good morning. This is Claire Dragovich reporting on the quality systems. We have met twice since our last quarterly meeting, and we have been discussing the report issued in May of this year by the University of Illinois, Chicago, regarding activities at the Analytical Forensic Testing Laboratory, also known as AFTL in Chicago. So we've been going through that report, discussing the information provided in that report. The quality system had previously received significant nonconformities reported by AFTL. So we had information from that report that we are comparing to the information provided in the report issued by UIC. We're probably about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way, maybe, through the report. We will continue going through that report and then most likely issue some kind of statement or summary document regarding our understanding of the report and any questions we may have that need to be forwarded to subject matter experts to address.
And this is a discussion item also for later on. So if there's any questions, Ms. Dragovich can address them now, but also it is a discussion item on the agenda.
Claire, is there anything additional for from the Quality Systems Committee?
No, that is the only thing we've been discussing at our last 2 meetings.
And when are the the other non-conformities, non-conformity report due? They're not due until next January for the laboratories?
That is correct. We solicit for the calendar year of nonconformities completed by 17025 Labs in Illinois. So we would be sending out a letter as we did this year, probably in the new year of 2026 to
Okay.
request participation in that process.
Okay, thanks. Next, we'll move on to training and career development. Jeff, are you giving that presentation? I'm sorry, not Jeff.
Yes, it's Karen that will be doing that
Karen.
presentation.
Thanks.
The Training and Career Development Subcommittee has met monthly, and we're continuing to work on videos for our website. The introductory video is complete, and we are still working on the fundamental videos in each section. The latent print discipline and the drug chemistry discipline are in final edits. We got edits based on the commission feedback that they're working on. And we're currently working on the content in toxicology, firearms, DNA, and trace. In addition, the subcommittee created stock images for all sections to be able to use in these presentations over the summer. We also worked through general technical issues, consistency, and content for all sections and our goals, so that we'll be able to carry on to the other sections as they create. We anticipate the latent prints and drug chemistry to be available for voting for the December meeting, and others to follow after that.
Do we have any idea, Karen, when we'll be ready, or Amy, when we'll be ready to put those on our own channel?
Yeah, assuming that the latent prints and drug chemistry videos are approved by the commission at this December meeting, then they can go up right after that.
Okay, does anybody have anything additional for training and career development? Okay, if not, Karen, thank you for the report. Moving on to public policy.
Good morning, this is John. The Public Policy Subcommittee has met twice since our June meeting. We've addressed primarily two issues. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, two areas of discussion have taken our time. The first area, again, pertains to emerging or new drugs. In other words, those that are not defined or specifically prohibited in the criminal law. This topic is on our agenda for discussion today, so I won't say much now, other than the subcommittee has a proposal for the full commission for an ad hoc new subcommittee on drugs. As I said, that will be taken up as the second item for discussion further down in the agenda. The second item that we have dealt with in the subcommittee is thanks to the leadership and work of Chris Hughes and Dr. Pani Arunkumar. We've also been discussing the topic of funding for the issue of identifying missing persons or unidentified human remains. And I guess at this point I'd ask Chris Hughes or Pani to take that one, please.
Sure. So the update hasn't changed since our last subcommittee meeting, which is that we're kind of awaiting to talk with the Illinois Coroners and Medical Examiners Association to see what happened at the August meeting, where they shared some of the content that we had drafted collectively from stakeholder meetings we had over last spring. And so I know that ICMEA was interested from the board representation in our meetings. They were interested in kind of pursuing that with their legal team to then reach out to legislators and see if there was any support for that. So hopefully, if that's something that ICMEA is interested in supporting, we would then invite them to come speak to our subcommittee and see if there's a way that we could support that initiative.
If and when you do have a draft too, if you'd like to forward it to me, I can pass it on to Captain Thompson to get them involved as well, if that's helpful.
Yeah, great. I think, so I imagine whatever we drafted probably is not what they're, I think it's not, we know it's not in the format. So we figured that was there more for the information. And then once they get to that point, that's a great idea to connect in that way. Thank you.
And so that's all we have from our subcommittee, those two items.
All right, thanks, John.
Sure.
Moving on to technology. Now, Jeff, are you ready?
Thank you, Robin. Yes, I am. Good morning, everyone. The Technology Subcommittee met once since our last quarterly meeting in August 20th. Part of the agenda was our Executive Director. Amy already alluded to giving an update from her attendance in July's RTI Harnessing AI for Forensics Symposium that was held in DC. The summary that our Executive Director gave us was in lockstep of our ongoing discussions regarding the topic of AI and forensics applications with our core forensic disciplines present. This particular summary was pretty much because it was lockstep with the previous discussions we've had, it gave us grounds to consider our initial goal and our end game here of defining AI applications in forensics and determining whether or not what impact overall AI is having in forensics in our modern status. This discussion led to roundtable discussions repeatedly with our core forensic disciplines. Those roundtable discussions, coupled with the invitation that we gave to NIST subject matter experts, Dr. Henry Swafford and Melissa Taylor from the Forensic Science Program hosted by NIST, determined that we were in lockstep of defining that, as each stakeholder has stated, that in no way will AI take the place of trained forensic scientists in applications of casework, in data interpretation, data acquisition, court testimony, evidence handling. So during this roundtable discussion with each core forensic discipline given their input, and also with the discussions we had with Dr. Swafford and Ms. Taylor, we came to the conclusion that we have reached the end of this discussion. We have reached this conclusion, just like has been stated. And in talking with even stakeholders from the legal side, we came to the conclusion that our trained forensic scientists in their decision-making, their applications, their workflows, applications in casework, court testimony, that it will continue to take a trained forensic scientist skilled in those disciplines, coupled with AI applications that are beneficial. It still would take a trained forensic scientist at the end of the day to be making those decisions. There's no way that AI will be overtaking a trained forensic scientist at this point. So at this point, as far as open business, we have again invited Dr. Swafford and Melissa Taylor for another roundtable discussion. The purpose of that discussion is follow up with what they presented earlier this year. I believe it was in April, to provide any further background for the core forensic disciplines of what are applications that can be considered. Most of it along the lines of instrumentation and improvements in software, whether or not that is true AI applications, and also in administrative roles such as quality assurance, peer reviews, and case file reviews, things on the administrative end. We ended our discussion tabling it at this point. That's what I have for now for the technology subcommittee.
I'll also note that the subcommittee created I'll call it an AI reference library in Teams. And I have noticed that the different subject matter experts in the different disciplines are continuing to populate articles and, information as they get it. So that is a great continuing resource. And certainly if anything changes, they can revisit it. If anyone on the commission who's not part of the subcommittee wants to be able to access that, just let me know and I can have you added to that particular Teams channel. But they are adding to it regularly.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Amy. That's all I had.
Thanks, Jeff. Moving on to FIG. It's FIG subcommittee chair, Chris. Chris, are you on?
Yes, thank you, Robin.
Thanks.
So our FIG subcommittee met in July, and the main goal of that, after we had spent our previous meetings talking with subject matter experts and learning about all aspects of FIG, we decided at that meeting that we needed to focus on how we could support law enforcement agencies and medical and coroners offices in our state to navigate best practices and considerations when using FIG. We realized that this would largely be something that we would have to do work as a commission to spread the word about. And we identified two components of products that we might want to try to make. The first would be a brochure that would just have the very basics and then provide a QR code or a link to the commission's website where we would have more content available. Between our July meeting and our upcoming meeting in September, the plan has been, and we have drafted a couple of different documents that would go along with this initiative. So the first is the brochure that we would distribute, which kind of has that kind of punchy needs and what the commission's role is in this, and what is provided on the larger website. Then we've done a pretty extensive development of drafting FAQs that we will review and tweak as needed. The topics that are covered in that FAQ for these agencies includes technical foundations, case suitability and strategy, sample collection and relative engagement, lab and personnel selection, legal and ethical considerations, the cost, time, and funding, and any relevant definitions and resources for FIG. So it's pretty comprehensive. We also are working on a flow chart of decisions at each step from start to finish of a case, where you might initiate a case and then consider implementing FIG all the way to case resolution. And so the decision tree kind of puts into that space what are all the important things we need to think about, and more importantly, which experts are involved at each stage. So our plan is to review all these documents at the next subcommittee, work on what we need to address them. I think ideally we would then hopefully loop in some of those subject matter experts that we had prior or additional ones that would be willing to review our documents, get their feedback, and then hopefully bring that to the larger commission as needed for review, and then ultimately get that distributed and up on the commission website. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, chairs, for your committee reports. If you want to move into our issues for discussion, our first issue on the agenda is meeting dates for next year. Amy, you want to give us those dates?
Sure. So I've put them up on the screen. Potential dates for March, June, and September, which would be in person here in Urbana, and then December, which is WebEx. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are dates that this room that we're in now is available for. So I did check, obviously with the location before I threw dates out at you guys to make sure they'd have space for us here. And all that means is that this particular room is available. If you pick a date that's not highlighted in yellow, then presumably we can use the upstairs room that we've used before, but this room's obviously more conducive to the public being here and spreading out and things like that. So basically this year we chose Wednesdays. So I provided a few different days of the week in case you want to change that. So for March, it's Tuesday, March 10th, Wednesday, March 11th, or Thursday, March 12th. For June, it is Tuesday, the 9th, Wednesday, the 10th, or Thursday, the 11th. For September, taking into account the Labor Day holiday, which comes a little later, I believe it's the week of 9/9. So I skipped ahead to Wednesday 9/9, Thursday 9/10, or if you want to punt it to that following week. So it's not the week, during the week after Labor Day, then Tuesday, September 15th. And then for December, the 8th, the 9th, or the 10th. So open for discussion. Anyone have any conflicts that they're aware of?
Wednesdays look good if we want to keep it consistent and be in the large room. I don't know how everybody else feels about Wednesdays.
Definitely agree. Also, I'd like to ask, as we've done before, we had an additional facility in which we were able to host a meeting. This past June, we were in Chicago, for example. Previous year, we were at DuPage. Are there any considerations for that in the future?
I mean, that's up to you. If certainly we could do it again. If you wanted to do the June meeting again at the Chicago lab, we could presumably make that happen. Unless I think we have Ms. Shambon online. if she wants to comment, if she knows of any current conflicts in the lab schedule before I offer it up for June.
Not necessarily conflicts, but I don't know where we'll be at with our renovation project at that time. And they will be doing some work in our auditorium, so I think we'd have to decide closer.
Okay. Well, we could tentatively schedule the meeting for here, and if we decide that, or if you decide that you want to have a meeting up north or someplace else in one of the months, we could make that change easily.
That's plausible. That's fine. Thanks.
Then do we want to call for, is there any more discussion? Or should we call for a vote or make a motion or for one of the days of the week?
So if you want, I can read it out and then just so we're clear for the record, and then someone could make the motion. Does that work?
Okay, sounds good.
I would entertain a motion to approve the following dates for 2026 Forensic Science Commission quarterly meetings held at 10 a.m. Wednesday, March 11th, Wednesday, June 10th, Wednesday, September 9th, and Wednesday, December 9th, with the December meeting being held via WebEx. Would anyone like to make that motion?
This is Art Hill. I make that motion.
We have a second?
Karen Tucker, second.
I don't think we need a roll call vote for this, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining, excuse me. Okay, that motion carries. Thank you. And I will send out meeting reminders so you can populate them into your calendar. Usually I don't create the WebEx link until closer, otherwise it gets lost in my email, but you will at least have the calendar reminder.
All right. Sounds good. Then our next item of discussion is from the Public Policy Subcommittee. It's a recommendation for the creation of the Ad Hoc Drug Subcommittee, which was discussed this meeting and last meeting. John?
Oh, so I'll actually provide it unless Mr. Hanlon wants to. I can provide a little background.
Please, yeah, please, Amy.
Okay, so as the commission is aware, because you've created one other ad hoc subcommittee for FIG, you do have the express statutory authority to create new subcommittees as needed to address issues. So as was discussed at the last commission meeting, the Public Policy Subcommittee has been addressing the issue of emerging drugs and primarily how to ensure consistent reporting of emerging drugs across lab systems in Illinois. As was discussed at the last meeting, since the last full commission meeting, the subcommittee has moved forward with creating on its own, this is again outside the commission, a working group, starting with the accredited labs to get that line of communication going so that they can figure out how, when they identify a new, and drug chemists jump in if I say something wrong, a new or emerging compound, that they can communicate with the other labs regarding that. Once that is set up, they will also be inviting any other labs in Illinois that are doing seized drug analysis to participate in that. So the larger discussion was how do we bring that information? We understand that this is, or I should say, it's been discussed that this is a short-term kind of setup, hopefully, and that perhaps this working group will be more permanently housed someplace else. But for many considerations, the commission was not the appropriate place to house the working group. So the concept of creating a drugs subcommittee within the commission came up, and that subcommittee, which would fall under the commission, would provide a mechanism for the emerging drugs working group to share any information that they gather from, their identification of emerging drugs in Illinois. Because it's part of the commission, the subcommittee could include other stakeholders such as medical examiners, coroners, toxicologists, public health representatives, law enforcement agencies, and essentially serve as a hub for sharing information related to emerging drugs and identification of drug trends, which isn't just important for criminal justice purposes, but also for public health and medical examiner and coroner purposes as well, so they know what panels to order in suspicious deaths, and also identifying abuse trends, things like that. And then once that information is shared, since the drug subcommittee, if approved, would be part of the commission, the subcommittee could compile data that is shared with the group And then that data could be shared or published by the commission as it seems fit, and distributed to other interest groups. That data could also then possibly be used to help with legislation with the interest groups who are involved with legislation related to controlled substances. And they could also share that information with other subcommittees such as technology and training and career development, since the new and emerging drugs may impact the technology that labs need, and the types of training that they need for their forensic scientists. And then a secondary kind of thing that, because the drug subcommittee would not be limited just to the issue of emerging drugs, they could also make recommendations related to the Illinois Controlled Substances Act and legislation. We kind of, I think, learned through this process that drug chemistry is very complicated, I guess would be the right way to use it, and really fruitful discussions regarding it involves the subject matter experts. So it seemed like a good idea to create a subcommittee where those subject matter experts could discuss things such as, for example, last term Senate Bill 1773, which I think addressed opioids or fentanyl, synthetic opioids, is that correct? And some other drugs too. Yes, so so that's kind of the general summary. I invite anyone, especially from that subcommittee, to add on to anything I've missed.
Will the subcommittee be just considered, the name would just be the drugs subcommittee, or will be emergent drugs, or what will if we vote on it, what's the final name for the subcommittee?
Drugs subcommittee.
Okay.
And that way they're not just limited to emerging drugs,
Thanks.
or seized drugs for that matter, since
Right.
toxicology can play in as well. It gives them, and not that the name defines what they can do, but
It gives it a broader meaning, right? Okay.
correct.
So do we want to call for a vote for it, or do we have to have a,
Before we, so because this is an agenda item of substance that is a vote, I'm going to have to open it up for public comment first.
okay.
So if there's, just to check first, anyone in the commission wish to offer any more comment at this point, you can now for after public comment. Okay.
Joe, I actually do have one thing to just mention. This is Art Hill. I love the concept of sort of the nexus between the subcommittee and sort of separated the subject matter experts, the folks in the field, the folks that are on the ground that are actually going to look out for these kinds of things. We didn't want to bring that whole concept into the commission itself because, among other things, we didn't want to have pending cases discussed during open meetings. And at the same time, I think it's important for us, we on the commission, to support this whole process. It sounds really, really important. And because of the nexus, we're going to be able to do things that maybe the folks on the ground could not, as in, or maybe we can do it a little better, recommendations for legislation and things like that. So there's the connection, the nexus, but not a complete overlap. I think that's an important concept here.
And again, so not to be, as we've had in previous discussions, it's not an issue of trying to avoid Open Meetings Act. It's just kind of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole with the type of work that the labs would be doing as far as dealing with information in real time. So I will note that, again, this is a short-term kind of idea of how to formalize this process. Once we see how this works, one idea that has been floated, and I think it'll be better if we deal with it in the future, once we have some data and some deliverables to show how it works, would be if this is working in such a way that the commission decides they want to bring the whole thing under the umbrella of the commission and possibly seek to have this working group exempted from Open Meetings Act, that is a possibility for a more permanent solution. But as you can imagine, to request and get an exemption under the, from the Open Meetings Act when everything is presumed to be open, we'd have to show a need for it. And I think it'd be better And it'll probably take a while because most legislation does. And we want to get this going right away. But that is a possible long-term solution to bring everything within that we've identified so far. There may be other things that we identify once these groups start meeting. But that would be a possible long-term solution.
I like the idea of having the drug subcommittee pulled out from the public policy committee for one reason, because they're, it could be such a not just time consuming, but encompassing committee in and of itself, that to really do public policy justice, to move the drugs out of there so the drug public policy doesn't take over and give it its own subcommittee is probably wise. And it's really good for the laboratories in the state, because as laboratories, it's not really our job as analysts and laboratory managers to help create public policy. We're kind of neutral. So in our neutrality, it's really hard to be responsible for helping to create public policy. But as the commission, that's where we can help recommend some public policy. And I think that subcommittee, that idea of creating that subcommittee is, that's the right place for it. It would be housed here in the commission, and I think that's the correct spot for it.
Anyone else have comment from the commission? Okay, so at this point, I'm first going to open it up to public comment for those that are here in person. Does anyone here wish to comment?
Ancient history.
If you could just state your name and then your comment, please.
Timothy Ruppel, Kane County Forensic Laboratory. In ancient history, decades ago, DEA used to have a national forum to exchange information like this called the microgram. Does anybody know if anything like that still exists?
Microgram doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, good. So I don't have to look for it anymore then. Okay, then this would be the right place to do it on a state level.
Thank you. I'll now open it up to anyone joining us via WebEx who would like to offer public comment on this topic before we submit it for a vote. Oh, we have Amanda, go ahead.
Thank you. I do think that internal communication on these topics would be within the state of Illinois would be beneficial. Having done some of these things just within ISP, having an open forum to collaborate, especially on the legislative and policy recommendations, is a benefit. And just for Mr. Ruppel, there is an online forum with the DEA that has kind of morphed into a replacement for microgram, and he can reach out and I will share it. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else joining online that would like to offer public comment? Either raise your hand or speak. I'm going to just quickly stop sharing the screen so that I can check the chat. I don't see anything in the chat. So with that, this one, I think, since it is an ad hoc subcommittee, I think a roll call vote would be appropriate. So first, I entertain a motion to approve the creation of an ad hoc subcommittee on drugs.
This is Jill Baker. I make that motion.
Carrie Ward, second.
Great. So I'm going to go down the roll call. If you could vote yes in support, no, not in support of the subcommittee, or abstention. So first, Ms. Dragovich.
Yes.
Ms. Woolery.
Yes.
Dr. Arun Kumar.
Yes.
Ms. Baker.
Yes.
Mr. Buford.
Yes.
Ms. Drummond. Mr. Hanlon.
Yes.
Judge Hill.
Yes.
Dr. Hughes. Ms. Ryhill.
Yes.
Ms. Tucker.
Yes.
And Ms. Ward.
Yes.
I think I missed anyone. Yes. All right, so that passes unanimously, so that will be created. And I will get that up and going and all the things that go along with it. If anyone wants to join that subcommittee, send me an email and I will make you part of the subcommittee. Thank you so much.
All right. Moving on to our third issue for discussion. The resolution of bylaws regarding chairperson recommendation and selection procedures for vice chairperson.
So I mixed up the order of my slides, but so I put action item, though I'm not sure you'll want to take action at this meeting, but essentially based on the change to the statute, the commission statute, and the current bylaws, the way it's written for commission chairperson, I submit that there's two topics that would need to be addressed in amending the bylaws. One would be to amend the section 17, which talks about the chairperson, and then to suggest creation of a new section that specifically addresses vice chairperson. So I took it because the commission chairperson section already exists. I took a stab at some potential language, which you can review and like at this point. Though I'd say since there's another, instead of voting and amending the bylaws now and then again in December, I would submit maybe we do it all in December. But basically just making changes for a few reasons. One, previously, the way that you had put forth the recommendation for chairperson was to elect a vice chairperson and then submit that name. I'm suggesting from a procedural standpoint to separate those two things out. So you can move, you've already made a decision about who to submit for recommendation for the next chairperson. So that can go, that's already been submitted to the governor. It can be resubmitted, and that's for Ms. Dragovich with the new January 1st date. But I realize that now that there's this set term for chairperson, there may be people who want to be considered for chairperson and don't want to be vice chairperson, or vice versa. Perhaps someone wants to be a vice chairperson but has no interest in being a chairperson. So I thought it might be good to separate that out. So as far as proposed changes to the existing section 17, it just throws in, having the chairperson act in the stead of the vice chairperson act in the stead of the chairperson at meetings. And then if both are not present, that the chairperson would designate someone to preside. It adds in the new language that was added to the statute. And then just a thought was that beginning in 2027, because since you already have your recommendation for 2026, the next one would be 2028, that before the end of each odd numbered calendar year, so basically the year before the recommendation, that you would nominate and select a member of the commission as a candidate for the position of chairperson and then submit that recommendation to the governor. So that was my thought on how to do it. It doesn't set it for a particular month. It gives you, I think we discussed doing it in September would be preferable. So that way, a few months prior to the January 1st, 2028, the commission could decide on who they want to recommend to the governor as the next chairperson. So that was an idea for that. And then for vice chairperson, I didn't draft anything other than to say that the commission members may elect a vice chairperson, because the statute does say you may elect other officers. My thoughts for what we might want to put in the section and wanted to hear from you was, do you want to set a time frame? Do you want to, do you want to wait until the chairperson is chosen? Do you want to just completely divorce the two? And do you want to have a specified term? Or what your thoughts are? Or if you just want me to lay out general procedures for the election of a vice chairperson, and then you can just decide when, based on who becomes chairperson, you want to do the elections, we could do it that way too. So, any thoughts?
I would suggest 2-year timeframe.
2 years?
just to be consistent with the chairperson timeframe.
And so will the election of the chairperson and the vice chair be on different cycles?
So the commission doesn't elect, well, that's the whole thing is, that's part of the question is, do you want to, when you make the decision in, let's say, September of the year before the governor is going to name a new chairperson, do you want to elect a vice chairperson at that point too? Or do you want to separate the two out?
I'm a little confused.
Sure.
I thought we had this all figured out. Can you take a few steps back again
Sure.
and explain how what you're proposing is different than what we already decided?
Sure. So what you had already decided was that on I believe it was on an annual basis, you were going to submit a recommendation for chairperson to the governor. And so the way the language was in the, here I have the old version. I can go back 1 second. So the way if you see right there, it said before the end of each calendar year, the commission member shall nominate and select a member of the commission as a candidate for the position of chairperson. So obviously that needs to change because the statute has changed, which now sets it at January 1st of 2026 and sets 2-year terms. So basically January 1st of every even year. So that needed to be changed. And then since it's designated for a term, I thought that it might, again, with the concept of separating out vice chairperson from chairperson in case someone wants to be considered for chairperson but not vice, or vice but not chairperson. Basically not making it necessarily required that whoever is the vice chairperson would automatically be your next recommendation.
You also need to add language to this in the event that the person who is selected as the chair is not a de facto member of the commission and has to be reappointed. So for example, a subject matter expert that could be replaced at the end of their term, we would have to take that, like if they were halfway through their term and then they become chair for 2 years, do they get to stay for that second year? What happens if they get replaced? Is that an automatic renewal to be a member of the commission? Or could they be replaced by another subject matter expert and then they only have a 1-year term? How would we handle that scenario?
Okay, so I think you're right. We should probably add something into section 17 about that. The chairperson has to be a member of the commission according to the statute. So if someone's term were to expire or they were to resign from the commission while they were serving as chairperson, is I think what I'm hearing you say is something that we should account for as to what would happen at that point.
Yes, or if their term expired and they weren't renewed because a different subject matter expert was selected for that position.
Like, would that new subject matter expert automatically become the chairperson?
No, not that they would become the chair, but then we would have to do an extra election to replace that person, which would be the same if somebody had to resign from their membership on the commission too. But it's just another thing that we would have to factor in because of the 4-year term limits. And then the 2-year chairperson, they could not be overlapping. And then we'd have to just figure out who is eligible to be voted for.
So that might be another good reason to stagger chairperson and vice chairperson, because we could put in the bylaws that if the chairperson leaves the commission, either term expiration or, or resigns for whatever reason, that the vice chairperson would act in their stead until the governor names a new
chair or vice.
So we could add that at the bottom, maybe there of section 17, something like that. And again, just starting the discussion here, I can work on drafts and send them to you between now and December so that way but I wanted to get these concepts out there.
And the chairperson has to be appointed by the governor, but the vice chair is just elected by the commission.
Correct. Yes, the statute provides that here, let me go back. Again. The members of the commission shall elect from their numbers such other officers as they may determine. So that falls squarely on you.
I think we also need to consider putting in something that if a person's term expires before the governor names the next person, what do we do in that interim? So like if your current chair term, the 2-year term expires, but the governor doesn't name a replacement chair for 6 months, who's the chair in that interim?
So I think, let's see. That probably is addressed already by saying that at the bottom there of the proposed language in the box, the chairperson shall serve until such time as a new chairperson is designated by the governor. So that would be one way of addressing it. So if, that way you don't have a gap. Is to decide that that person would remain chair even if the governor didn't do it exactly at 2 years on the dot.
Right. Okay, great. And if that person decided to resign, regardless of whenever it was, the vice chair would step into that position until such time.
If we add that language, yes. And that would make, that would make sense. That seems like how most organizations kind of function. It's one of the,
Okay.
I think that totally makes sense. And I think it's still clear that the vice chair was not a position that was appointed by the governor, but that the vice chair is assuming that role in the stead of the chairperson's, the chairperson's absence. That I think it doesn't change that they are filling in that capacity, and there's still a process for the governor to name the next person. I think that totally makes sense.
Okay.
well, then I will take a stab between now and the next meeting. Obviously, I'll put together some proposed language and I can float it out to you. And you can do edits and make suggestions, and then we can make it a discussion item and a voting item, hopefully for the December meeting to amend the bylaws. I'll also just do another quick review of the bylaws to see if there's anything else that we want to change, kind of an annual check. Okay, anything else on that agenda item? Okay, Deputy Director, it looks like we're good on this end.
Yes, okay. And then we can move on to our fourth agenda item,
So
which
this,
is the THC testing at UIC's AFTL.
so I put this on the agenda item after discussing with the Quality Systems Subcommittee, the fact that given that this is an evolving and important issue, that it should be probably going to be a standing discussion item for a while for the commission to give everyone on the commission the ability to talk about it, as well as to make it more accessible to the public, since the commission meetings are more widely attended by the public than the subcommittee meetings. So what I thought I would just start with was, this is, as we've discussed before, this is the first time the commission has dealt with an issue of this nature. So I put the language of the statute up and then kind of underlined in two colors, red and purple, different key, I'd say verbs is what I focused on mostly. Within your duties and purpose, you are not an oversight commission, as you well know, and you're not an investigatory commission. However, you do have a lot of ability. You have the ability to do a lot. So some of it is more action verbs, I would call, such as providing guidance, making recommendations, and other is more reviewing, collecting and analyzing information, evaluating, identifying things, new policies and approaches and things like that. So as just wanted to get you thinking about that as the Quality Systems Subcommittee is doing its first pass of the AFTL report, to start thinking about what types, depending on what direction that goes, what types of possible action you might want to take. And we'll just always make sure that whatever you decide to do is grounded in the statute. I'm going to take this down now and then just say that, so in addition to the UIC report, as you're aware, there also has been a significant amount of media coverage related to this issue, in a Justice Watch article that's written print, and then also some television media related to this topic. So I don't know how you want to proceed. If you, so just start talking about it, or if you want me to identify a topic and say go. I will say that as the subcommittee has noted, as it goes through the UIC report, the Injustice Watch article in particular touches upon more issues, I would say, that are than is what is discussed in depth in the UIC report. Not just the Delta 8, Delta 9 issue, but also the issue of urine testing is probably the biggest one. And while urine testing is touched upon briefly in the UIC report, it's not as extensively discussed as it is in the article.
Anyone with comments, opinions, issues to discuss relating to this topic?
This is Claire. I just want to summarize some things that if you look at the significant nonconformities that AFTL provided to us this spring, if you look at the UIC report of the AFTL lab, if you look at the article published by Injustice Watch, some of the overarching issues from all these materials seem to include the testing of urine for THC, which is inappropriate because you shouldn't be able to find THC in urine. The testimony that THC is the same as THC gluconoride, they are not. The issue with delineating between Delta 8 and Delta 9 THC, they are different. The inability to notify stakeholders appropriately of issues with testing. I see a lot of, there's a lot of evidence, if you want, which I know is a legal term, so maybe I shouldn't use that. There are a lot of statements made in these different sources that you can only conclude that there are problems with the work that was being performed at that lab. And so I think it's appropriate for the commission to continue investigating those issues to determine what, if anything, we can do to communicate to anyone that will read what we publish, our thoughts on the work that was performed there, to bring light to the issues that other people have seen but have not been able to make headway in dealing with.
I'll also note too that another thing that has come up with the subcommittee already is the UIC document itself, and the fact that it is written by lawyers. It was written by a law firm that was hired by the university, and how the concept that people who are just reading it at face value, that they may assume that what is written there is gospel and correct. And so one thing that was important, and you may want to consider putting into any work product you end up putting out, would be to clarify anything or correct anything that is not scientifically correct in that report based on the information that you have. And, you know, not ascribing any intent to anything, but lawyers, I can say as one myself, we're not scientists. So we write things differently. We may explain things differently. Things may have been lost in translation, but knowing that that is the main document right there out there right now, that is available to the public other than media. And it may be important for you to put something out there to go along with that.
I think another interesting question and concern I have regarding this whole situation is how the law was interpreted by prosecutors, defense, and judges. And that as a scientist, when I read the law, I think it's really clear that urine is not one of the matrices that should be tested. However, hundreds of legal trained people have read the law and thought that urine was a perfectly acceptable matrix for testing. And so I think, you know, kind of diving back a little bit to our previous discussion about establishing an ad hoc subcommittee for seized drugs, is the responsibility in trying to communicate when there could be apparently a misunderstanding in any laws that are created to be, you know, the law looks crystal clear to me, but obviously I'm not the person who is charging or representing or judging a case. So the responsibility that we have insofar as possible that we can as a Forensic Science Commission to influence law to ensure that it's clear to any reader, whether they have a science background or not, what is actually meant to be controlled or evaluated to assess whether someone has committed a crime.
This is Art Hill. I think it's important for the commission as a whole to get to the point where we, along with the Quality Systems Subcommittee, can make a statement relative to this issue because and I'm also a recovering lawyer, so I'm not a scientist. But it seems clear that on a few different levels, and Claire, our subcommittee chair, has kind of talked about this also. It seems clear that there are certain things in this document that may not be correct in terms of the science, may not be correct in terms of the law. And this is the main document that's in existence addressing this very serious problem. So to the extent that there are members of the public who have access to this document, who are reading it and who are relying upon it, I think it's a good opportunity for us as a commission to come out with a document, to make a statement, to be sure that the record is set correctly. I think it's crucial, and I think it fits well within our authority and our mandate to make statements like this for the sake of good forensic science going forward.
And it may make sense for you to take multiple actions related to this issue. So instead of maybe you want to think about, instead of packaging everything into one document, as Judge Hill just said, perhaps you issue one statement that's a response to the UIC report and pointing out any issues or errors that the commission identifies from its perspective. Another may be looking at the underlying, pain points, or I'm probably not using the right terms from a quality standpoint, systemic issues that you're able to identify. And that document may be geared more toward laboratories in Illinois so that they can learn lessons as to what may have gone wrong at this lab to inform your own quality systems. And then you may want to consider one that's geared at law enforcement / attorneys, criminal justice system. Because one thing I know I've been grappling with is, especially as technology gets more advanced, is, again, for the lawyers out there, how do they know if the science isn't correct, if the scientist is saying, if the lab is saying it's correct? So where, and that's kind of probably more a broader criminal justice systemic issue with communication, but those are three kind of different topics. They're all equally important, and they're all things that you could address within the scope of your statute.
And dovetailing from Amy's last comment is the question of how was this able to go on for so long? And what, if any, other mechanisms for stakeholders in the criminal justice system to be able to report a technical concern and have it addressed? And I do think that's something the commission should look into. Obviously you have defense attorneys working on individual cases, trying to make arguments to judges, but how else, what are the other mechanisms available in Illinois for reporting a lab if there is a belief that they're doing something nefarious? So I would like the commission to address that question.
This is Karen. I also, to add on to the comment of, sorry, this is Karen, to add on to the comment of one large packet or smaller packets. I like the idea of the smaller, more direct answers to some of the questions in terms of the timeliness of this situation and publishing a recommendation or a statement in regards to what we can in a timely fashion.
That's a good point. It may be, since the subcommittee's looking at the report itself right now, it might be advisable to first get something out there as quickly as they feel comfortable doing, making sure that it's accurate, of course, and hearing from subject matter experts, and to clarify anything at issue with the report so that that's out there as soon as possible, and then tackle the other topics. And again, this is evolving, so it may be that there's other topics that you decide that you would like to tackle related to this.
Add, and I'm kind of thinking of this long term. I feel that the forming of that working group for the toxicologists and then the ad hoc drugs subcommittee can help. You know, the people who are doing the work daily know what is going on, so they can discuss that in the working group and then report that as the ad hoc committee to the commission, just because this may need changes in, you know, putting out some kind of recommendation or putting out, you know, legislative change, who knows? So I think for future, this could possibly be picked up earlier, you know, with the formation of the working group and the drugs subcommittee.
I agree with what Claire just said, as far as asking the question of what are the mechanisms within the state to report if somebody is doing work nefariously or incorrectly. I think the commission should look into that and discuss, you know, looking at this particular issue, where did things go wrong and where could gaps be filled?
So gap analysis, root cause analysis to the extent possible with the information that, yes, is available. Else? Any commission members online that want to comment? Okay, then do you agree with keeping this as basically an open, recurring discussion item at commission quarterly meetings for the foreseeable future, even if there isn't much more to discuss, or if it's just to keep it open? Do you agree with that as a commission? Just kind of a general, I just think it's a good idea from a procedural standpoint and an accessibility standpoint.
I agree. That way it's already on the agenda if there's additional comments that members have.
Correct. And I'll always, as I do with most discussion items, I always indicate discussion and possible action, just so that if you decide to take some type of action, you've given the proper notice that you intend to take action. That doesn't mean you have to, of course. Okay, well, I want to thank especially the people who've, both the members of the Quality Systems Subcommittee and those who have joined from the public for their participation thus far. It has been very enlightening and helpful, I think. Right, Deputy Director, that is the final discussion item.
Okay, was there any comments from the public before we leave that topic?
Well, that we can do at the end with public comment, because since you're not taking a vote.
Okay, then housekeeping items. I don't have any housekeeping items on my list. Amy, did you have housekeeping items?
I do not, other than I'll mention OneNet training again. And also, I will tell you this. So I did complete an executive director resource manual to put everything in one place that has kind of been created and done since I joined you guys, both for myself so that I can go back to it and remember how do I do that, but also for, you know, anyone in the future. My next task is to try to provide, not that you guys don't have access to this because you can contact me, but a kind of a resource manual for commission members with, you know, phone numbers, reminders, you know, OneNet, things like that. Other things that I'm regularly emailing you about, as that way you could have it as a resource. Both, it'll be shorter than the executive director one is, but it'll be on Teams, and then I can also email it to you too.
And I would mention everyone should take a look at our website. Our executive director has been building our website out, so it's looking really, really good. So if you get an opportunity, take a look. You might see some new content there. And then we will now take public comment. Amy, if you want to direct that.
Sure, I'll start first with the members of the public who are here in person. Does anyone wish to offer a public comment on any topic? The members who are here are indicating no. I will now open it up to public comment for those joining via WebEx. If you could indicate by raising your hand or noting in the chat if you would like to offer public comment, please. I am not seeing anything in the chat. I am not seeing any hands raised. Going once, going twice.
All right, if we have no public comment, then we will adjourn and we'll look forward to everybody at the December meeting and at the subcommittee meeting. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yes, the next meeting, just I'll pull it out, so is Wednesday, December 10th at 10 a.m. and that will be held via WebEx. All right, thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you for the members of the public who joined us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.